I'm Ryan Green.
And I'm Zack Taylor.
And together we are Commander Social. And this week we're going to talk to you about wincons and having a plan and how those things relate.
Yep. Definitely seems like a good thing to do.
But before we do that, we want to thank everyone out there in audience land. Your support means the world to us. You know, just listening is such a privilege.
Yeah.
You know, we really are grateful. If you want to go a little above and beyond that, and you're watching this video on YouTube, make sure to hit the like button,
the subscribe button,
and the bell for ring-a-ding notifications. And if you want to go even more above and beyond that, check out our Patreon at patreon.com/commandersocial.
Yep.
And so I think you should take our patron of the week, Zach.
All right. Our patron of the week this week is the intern TH. One of our longest listeners, one of our bestest friends. He's done so much more for the show than just being a patron, but we definitely appreciate his patronage as well. So thanks, TH.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he contributes to show ideas all the time. Lets us bounce ideas off of him. So truly a fantastic patron. And we are so happy you are with us.
For sure.
Elliot, so thank you so much. Okay. And what are we doing for the patrons this month?
Yeah, we have a patron contest as we do every month. This month, we're giving away a brawl deck of your choice. So,
so you're saying just by being our patron, somebody out there in audience land is going to win one of those brawl pre-constructed decks?
Absolutely.
They get a pick?
Yeah. Yeah. No. I mean, that's how much we care about our listeners. We're not going to stick you with one you don't want, because who wants that?
Yeah.
Nobody.
You know, what I've been hearing a lot of talk about on the town is that Corvold, the Fakehurst King.
Yeah.
The Jund sacrifice commander. I think that's like a legitimate commander and not just for Brawl. Like I've been hearing some really good stories about that with squandered resources. And
isn't Dan doing some stuff like that?
I think so. I mean, I don't know. It just sounds really awesome. And maybe that's the one our patrons will pick. But you know what? They get to choose. Yeah. So what a beautiful thing.
For sure.
All right. So if you want to find us on Twitter, I'm at Green Geek.
I'm at Z4CK38. And together we're at Commander Social. So we don't want to leave our Twitter followers out too. So Ryan, what's our Twitter contest for this month?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked, Zach. This month, a random Twitter follower who follows the rules of the post will need to like and retweet the post and tag 3 people.
In the retweet,
yeah.
And follow us.
Yes, that's important too. And if you do all of those crazy things and fill in your Scantron with a number 2 pencil,
right,
you could win a foil Kenrith the Returned King. That's
a pretty sweet card. I wish I had one.
All right, so Zach, what's been going on in your personal life, man?
Man, it's been a pretty busy week for me. You'll probably have seen this on Twitter. I rewired my pedal board. I've been playing guitar for, I'm 36. I started when I was 15.
Carry the one.
Is that 20 years? 21 years?
Yep.
Like that?
That sounds right.
Yep. And I've never learned to scale until like 3 days ago.
Is that like when you put your guitar on something and it tells you how much it weighs?
Yes. So I learned the scale and I was talking to Mike about it and he was like, yeah, that's a good one to know. So I'm just practicing that scale and it's pretty cool. Also I'm sure everyone knows about this. Disney Plus came out this week.
Oh, yeah, it sure did.
Yeah, your kids have been enjoying that, right, Ryan?
Absolutely. The Little Mermaid has been on the TV
nonstop,
as well as a whole bunch of other things.
Yep.
The Mickey Mouse Clubhouse.
Oh, yeah.
Hot dog, hot diggity dog.
Forgot about that. I personally watched I finally got a chance to watch The Mandalorian last night. Chris Von Doom recommended it and was like, yeah, it's real good. And I was like...
And that's the hybrid that's like half man, half DeLorean?
Yes. It's a Back to the Future spinoff. I don't know if you knew.
I did not.
So I watched that and that was real great. And then something else Chris and I convinced me to do was to get the new Star Wars game, Jedi Fallen Order. So I'm definitely going to be playing that after this tonight. So yeah, what's been going on with you, Ryan?
All right. Well, it's time for your hashtag MTG Dad moment. And this one's a great one. This was a pair of videos that my wife sent me actually today. So very fresh in the mind.
Yep.
My kids were playing a game where Veronica got in the windowsill of our front living room. We have like a bay window kind of situation. Yeah. And there was like a toy piano there and she climbed up on that and then got in the window and then she would be like, help, help. And I'm trying to do it the best because it's a very Southern accent when she does it. And
help.
It was really funny. And then she was like, buddy, it's your turn. And then, second video, Malcolm makes his way over to the window and he gets up there and he's like, help. It was really funny and really cute. And then she came over to save him and basically was just like dragging him down out of the window by his shirt. But it was just so cute to like, and she's like, it's your turn. So they're playing together and they're using their imaginations and they're pretending to be trapped by some mystical force or, some evil window schemes.
Well, she's always saying that she's like, I'm going to be the hero and we got to save the city. So, she was saving her brother. Yeah.
And, I guess he saved her when she was up there the first time. So it was just super cute to see. And I love watching them interact together and play together and use their imaginations together. So, yeah, it was a wonderful moment. And I'm glad that I had that on video. So, that's it for your MTG Dad moment this week.
So that brings us to something we do every week. And that's thank Mike Condon, gentleman and scholar. Thanks for the audio engineering and thanks for that metronome, man. I'm really going to get some good use out of that.
Yeah, that's the little tick tock thing, right? Like
tick tock, don't stop.
Yep. Not going to give you this time, Zach.
I tried. Yeah, I've always wanted like one of the ones that actually like the piano ones that actually goes to, because those things are super loud. But I have a digital one.
Oh,
it's also super loud. So yeah. So I think that brings us to a section we like to call
Commander Rules.
On Commander Rules, we like to take a deep dive into the comprehensive rules of Magic the Gathering, and I'm going to read you out one here, and we're going to see how it hits you. This one is actually dedicated to listener Max Bloomfield at Tie-Dye Polar Bear on Twitter. We've been talking about Emery Lurker of the Loch recently, and he told me that you can actually cast Emery with an island and a lotus petal. And that seems like you can't do it, but I think you can.
Yep.
And these are the rules that back it up. It's actually 601.2F and 601.2G.
All right, let's hear it.
So here we go. 601.2F is a long one. It says,
wow.
The player determines the total cost of the spell. Usually this is just the mana cost. Some spells have additional or alternative costs. Some effects may increase or reduce the cost to pay or may provide alternative costs. Once again, Emery actually costs one less for each artifact you have. Yep. So she's 2 and a blue for a 1/2, and she costs one less for every artifact. So that's going to come into play here. Costs may include paying mana, tapping permanents, sacrificing permanents, discarding cards, and so on. The total cost is the mana cost or the alternative cost as determined by Rule 601.2b, self-referential, plus all additional costs and cost increases, and minus all cost reductions. If multiple cost reductions apply, the player may apply them in any order. If the mana component of the total cost is reduced to nothing, by cost reduction effects, it is considered to be 0. It can't be reduced to less than 0. Once the total cost is determined, any effects that directly affect the total cost are applied. Then the resulting total cost becomes, quote, locked in. And I think that's the important part here. If effects would change the total cost after this time, they have no effect.
Okay.
So that's the deal. So when you're sitting there and you've got the 2, you're saying, okay, well, Emery's going to cost 2.
Yep.
Lock that in. And then 601.2G says, if the total cost includes a mana payment, the player then has a chance to activate mana abilities. Right. See Rule 605, mana abilities.
Yeah.
Mana abilities must be activated before costs are paid. And sacrificing that lotus petal is a mana ability.
Yeah.
So
that makes sense.
So that's how you cast Emery for 2, and you only have 1 mana in play afterwards. Yeah. So awesome tip from Max
for sure
out there, and something to share with the listeners, a little PSA, right?
Yeah. Hopefully, maybe we'll get to do that sometime.
I do have Lotus Petal in my Emery deck.
I do too.
So that all made sense and was pretty decent.
Yeah, it was pretty decent. I think you explained it well. Like, because obviously I saw this on Twitter too, and I was like, is that true? I was like, I had to think about it, and then I thought I had figured it out, but then like the rules like definitely solidified what I thought.
Yes, they seem to support it. So out there in audience land, if we got that wrong, let us know.
For sure.
But I think we got it right.
I think we got it right.
Okay, so that's going to move us right on into the main topic, having a plan. You know what? We're going to have a plan, and we're going to talk about planning for your win cons as well. So having a plan starts even before you sit down to a game.
Definitely.
Did you know that?
You've told me that before.
All right. So
do I believe it?
I think so.
Yeah,
I do.
So.
All right. So let's talk about this first bit here.
So really, like the first part of your plan is building your deck. I mean, that's why you build a deck, I think, is you see a commander, or you see something and you're like, oh, I have a plan in my head that goes with that. And then you build out the deck, So, your deck should have plans on winning. I mean, one of those should also be allowing everyone else to have fun while you're playing the deck. But
fun is important. After all, that is the whole reason we're playing this game.
Yep. But still, your plan should definitely end in a win, or you want it to end in a win.
That's what all my plans do.
Yeah, right?
I plan on winning.
So, and the thing about plans, though, is especially in Magic, things can change at a moment's notice. There's a board wipe, or something happens, and it's just like, oh, well, that plan's kind of out the window. So, you got to be ready to adapt your plan. Another thing that can happen is, like a Wheel of Fortune or a Windfall sort of situation where, discard your hand and draw a new grip. And, that's definitely disruptive to your plans. But, the other thing is something else you can plan on leaning on into a little bit.
You can adjust your plan by planning to play a game of politics.
Yep.
Right? So if your plan A kind of goes the way of the dinosaur, maybe you can get to that win by a little subtle manipulation, maybe some pointing out of threats at the table,
right?
Maybe some, deal making. Any sort of political intrigue could happen here.
I mean, what I do is just slam my fist on the table and be like, that gotta go.
That cost of that creature is too darn high.
Yep.
All right. So I want to go back and revisit this first bullet just a little bit, which is, have a plan like when you sit down to build the deck.
Yeah.
Right. So like when you're trying to figure out which cards to include in the deck, think about how your deck's going to win.
Yeah.
Right. Kind of try to like cast your mind forward in time and think about what is it going to be like when I'm sitting down to play it? Am I going to try to win via commander damage? Am I going to try to do some other crazy strategy? And make sure that you're including cards that support that plan, right? Like if you're going to try to, fireball out your opponent, try to get some things that add a lot of mana to your mana pool or something like that, right?
Yeah.
I think that if you build the deck with a plan in mind, it makes it a whole lot easier for you to like come up with like a more tuned focus deck rather than just kind of like a pile of cards that are good.
Right.
But maybe that's your plan. Maybe your plan is like, I just want to cast a whole bunch of flying creatures. That could be a plan.
I mean, that's a legitimate plan. Bird Tribal is a thing.
Dun, dun, dun. All right. So we said be ready for your plan to change. And that is something that you should definitely do.
Yeah.
But, not all commanders are created equal, and some commanders facilitate making that plan a little bit easier, right?
Yep.
It's actually pretty linear. Like when you look at the commander and you read it, you're like, oh, this is a card that gives me a plan. So the first one that I'm going to kind of use to illustrate this point is Atraxa, Praetor's Voice. And this is blue, green, white, black for a 4/4 legendary creature, Angel Horror, with flying, vigilance, death touch, lifelink. That's a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot.
And at the beginning of your end step, proliferate, right? And proliferate just means you can choose any number of permanents or players with counters on them and add a counter, right?
Yep.
So you can put +1/+1 counters on your creatures if they have them. You can put poison counters on your opponents if they have them. You can put loyalty counters on your planeswalkers if they have them. And so Atraxa's really like there, right? It's okay, I'm going to play with counters and I'm going to try to do this proliferate thing and I'm going to try to fly in and be a death touch blocker and maybe even do something with a life gain, but that's typically not what we see with Atraxa, right?
It's true.
So what are some of the the plan A's or main plans you could build with Atraxa, right?
There's definitely infect tokens.
Mm-hmm.
You can proliferate infect tokens. Like you said, super friends. You build, just have a lot of planeswalkers and try to ultimate them as fast as possible with Atraxa. With the blue and the green in the color identity, there are a lot of cards that that proliferate in those colors and can help out with that plan. Another one is +1/+1 counters. I think that's a pretty
get
big
that
one.
Vorl of the Hulklade going.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, with Atraxa, it's definitely there are some very obvious win condition plans that you can use for win conditions. They're just spelled out real easily. But I think there are other commanders that they do powerful things, but don't necessarily spell a win condition, right? One that I've always had a problem with is Urtai the Corrupted. I'm always trying to build an Urtai the Corrupted deck, and it just, I don't know, it always kind of peters out and doesn't exactly do what I want it to do. But
so Urtai the Corrupted is 2 white, blue, black for a 3/4 creature wizard legend. Blue, tap, sacrifice a creature or enchantment, counter target spell.
Yeah. And countering spells is good. It's great, but it's not necessarily a win condition, not like with Atraxa or anything.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to turn that into a win, right? Like countering spells is like stopping your opponents from doing stuff, but it's not necessarily actively like progressing you towards a win.
Yeah.
You would kind of have to combine it with a card like Guile or something like that, where when you counter a spell, you get to replay it.
Right.
And even that's like, that's pretty fragile because you have to draw Guile somehow, so you probably have to play like a lot of tutors. That's a hard
and you have to protect
main plan.
Right.
So I think, if you were going to build Urtai the Corrupted, like with a plan in mind, it'd be like, well, I want to be a control deck. And that's a harder plan. I mean, you can definitely do it. Right. But then you have to like specifically make room in your deck for win conditions, right? You're like, well, I'm going to try to like control the board and have a whole bunch of fodder to sacrifice to Urtai. And then I'm going to have a bunch of flying angels and demons or something, right? Or sphinxes.
The last plan I tried, and it worked out okay. It just wasn't what I wanted to be playing, but it was a go wide soldier token strategy. Generate a lot of tokens with like Killjoy and Outpost and things like that. And like,
nice. Yep.
It was cool. It just didn't work out. Another commander like this is Tatiova Benthic Druid, which is a strong
commander. By no means are we saying these commanders are bad. It's just there's kind of like a little bit of a hard time coming up with a plan. So
like Tatiova Benthic Druid's 3 green blue for a legendary creature Merfolk Druid. It's a 3/3 and says whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 1 life and draw a card. I mean, drawing cards starts to get you there, but the thing is, if you don't have a plan already, if you just do like, I don't know, good stuff or whatever, you need to draw. It's a cool way to facilitate drawing into your plan, the cards for your plan, but it's not a win condition in and of itself. That's kind of like,
like you might put a bunch of cards in there like Azusa Lost but Seeking, or Explore or whatever, or Exploration even, to like have you make lots of extra land drops to gain some life to draw some more cards, but you still need to win somehow. Right. And you actually have experience with a way of making this deck win, right?
And that's what I did. Like I built my quote unquote Tatiova Secret Infect deck, and I built this Infect deck, and originally the commander was going to be Rolesque, but I was like, I have problems drawing cards here. Tatiova draws cards. This deck has a lot of ramp. I'm gonna make Tatiova my commander because it's always there. She'll always be there. That I can bring her in and use her to draw some cards.
And the thing about Tatiova is she's an engine unto herself, right? Like
exactly.
You play a land to draw a card, and maybe that card you draw is a land, and then you can play that to draw a card. And all the while you're like buffering your life total. So it's a great good stuff commander, but like turning it into an Infect deck like you did was really cool. Like that was like, okay, my plan A is now Infect, and plan B could just be beating down with some bigger creatures.
Yeah, exactly.
And we're going to talk about having some backup plans a little bit later in this episode, but Tatiova is one that's like, it's kind of hard, right?
Yeah.
Whereas like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of another one that's got like a really good game plan. Like,
trying to think who has a good game plan. Anything one that doesn't have a good game plan?
Let's hear it.
Asami.
Oh, Asami Latest Scrolls, 2 blue, blue, blue for a 0/2 legendary creature wizard, and you can tap an untapped wizard you control to draw a card.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same sort of thing as Tatiova, right? You're drawing cards, which is always good, but you got to be drawing the cards that progress your plan. And if you don't have that plan there in the first place, you're not going anywhere.
Yeah, and so one I can think of that actually has a plan built in is like Kalia the Vast.
Okay.
This is white, red, black for a 2/2 legendary creature.
Yep.
And then when she attacks, you can put an angel, a demon, or a dragon from your hand into play, tapped and attacking. So Kalia the Vast is like, hey, you know what? Play some demons and dragons and angels.
Yeah.
Oh my. Like the plan is right there. It's spelled out for you. So it is kind of interesting that some commanders really have this like linear plan pretty well laid out.
Yeah.
And some are more like engine cards and some are more just like interesting cards. But it's cool that we actually have all this different choice and how we want to build it. So I think you should take the next bit.
So, you need, like we said already, you need a plan for these win cons. And for me personally, it's a little hard. It's a little hard to do for me. I definitely like, I'll see a commander like, yeah, I'm going to build this deck, and I build the deck and I do a lot of things. And, I think an example was my Emery deck. I was like, yeah, I want to take all the turns. I want to draw all the cards, but it's like, well, how do you parlay that into a win?
Yeah. Now that you've drawn all these cards and taken all these turns, how you going to win?
Yeah. And then it's especially hard for me is because I'm kind of like you, Ryan. I don't want to win via just attacking with creatures. To me, that's a little boring, and I'm not dissing that at all. That's just a personal preference on my part.
Well, and I mean, the other thing is like, it's definitely a very valid way to win, but it's also like the most commonly hated out strategy, right? People are going to be playing removal. They're going to be playing board wipes, and you have to fight through all of that if your main plan is to win with creature combat. Now, that being said, it gets it done a lot of the time, right?
It does.
Like, lots of games end with creatures, crashing in.
John.
Yeah, for sure, right? Any sort of aggressive strategy. So I think that can be a plan. It's just one where, again, I don't tend to like doing it because it's so commonly anticipated.
Exactly. It's just like, it's how, like in the old days when Magic first started, that's how you always won, right? So it's just the common way to win. Again, nothing wrong with it, but I always want to do something a little different.
Well, and here's the other thing. Okay, so if we're being real, like creatures are permanent sources of damage, right? They come into play, they stay in play, barring removal, and they can attack turn after turn after turn.
Yep.
And if somebody doesn't have any blockers, free damage, turn after turn. And you only pay the mana cost once, right? Like the initial investment. And so in a multiplayer game, that's like the efficient way to win, right?
Yeah,
cast the creatures, and then you get to use it to attack multiple different opponents. So it is a very common strategy, and it's a very valid strategy for that reason. And again, that's why it's also commonly counteracted by your opponents.
Yeah. So, I think something that I do that Ryan doesn't do, that you probably noticed maybe 2 episodes ago on the Emery deck tech, is I always have a win condition slot. Sometimes it's a convoluted combo. Sometimes it's...
Would you say it's a KFC 7-piece combo?
Sometimes.
Shout out to Andy Bentley.
Oh yeah, Big Ben's. Also, a lot of times I'm just like, oh, let me throw a fat Eldrazi in here. Eldrazi are big and scary. Like that's a thing that wins.
Eldrazi certainly end games, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I never play the Annihilator ones because I'm not like that. But like, I don't know. It's just, I want to find a better way to do it, I guess, because I don't want to always just throw in an Eldrazi for a win or throw in, a comfort. I want to find, better ways to win, and the help decking. And most of the time when I play games, I feel like I just like with my Emery deck, I feel like if I've definitely built a 2.0 version, but my original version, I feel like I would just be spinning my wheels a lot. I don't think I would actually find a way to win. I would just be drawing cards.
All right, hold on a minute. I'm gonna let you finish, but for real, this is how I win games.
Okay, Kanye.
So seriously, like this is how I win, right?
Yeah.
I sit and I try to I think this is like the definition of Value Town, right? Like I try to get value and get an engine going and draw cards and spin my wheels and maybe try to not look like a threat and then amass some stuff. And then okay, with these 12 cards, how do I, get this game win, right? And I think that is oftentimes a lot of what I do. And part of that is I lean a little bit onto politics as slightly a bit of a crutch. And, we've already mentioned in this episode, but I do try to get people to get the dirty work there. And then, by the end of the game, like I have so much resources available that I'm just going to threat my opponent. Like maybe I have 12 threats and they have 6 answers. And then those other 6 threats are just going to eventually win the game through, basically inevitability.
Right. So something that I wonder kind of, on how you play / build decks is, I mean, I definitely feel like I sometimes emulate you when I build decks and my play styles. And I wonder if that's why I don't it's hard for me to think out win cons because, you lean into the politics and get people to do it. And I definitely try the politics. I'm not always, or I'm rarely successful, but I try. And I wonder if that's kind of thing. And that's not like an insult on you by any means.
Oh, sure. I didn't take it as one.
It's just, I'll be like, yeah, because I definitely I'm building decks and I think, well, what would Ryan think about this card? Oh, Ryan thinks this card's not good. Okay, so I'm not going to play it. And then I see him play it in Brawl. Arbor Grazer's fine. Just not in draft.
Yep.
But yeah, I kind of wonder about that too. But I don't know.
It's an interesting thought. I think that a lot of times when I kind of find myself not necessarily worrying about how I'm going to win. It's kind of more about when I'm going to do it. And it's kind of like I fall backwards into the win sometimes.
Yeah, you see it as an inevitability.
Yeah, I'm just well, at some point I'm going to draw a bunch of cards and I'm going to find an opening and make my move. And, sometimes that gets counterspelled by TH, right? Our patron of the week. Yeah. And then, you get to go off with a combo, right?
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
the thing that can happen.
It's true. I mean, it's happened.
Indeed it has. So, okay. So the next thing that we should talk about here, and we did allude to it a little bit earlier, is when you're making a plan, it's a good idea to have some backup plans. Right? Not every plan is going to go according to plan.
Yeah.
As we mentioned earlier,
I
mean,
I'm just going to Cyclonic Rift at a random time. So you got to be ready to deal with that.
Right. So I have a couple of good examples from my personal deck building, right? So one of the decks I've built is Arielle, Knight of Windgrace, and I'll read it out here for the folks at home. Arielle, Knight of Windgrace is
2 white, black for a legendary creature, human knight, vigilance. She's a 4/4. She has an ability 2 and white. Tap, create 2/2 white knight creature token with vigilance. And then black, tap X, untap knights you control. Destroy target creature with power X or less.
Okay.
Big John played this card.
Yeah, it's a great card, and the deck's actually really fun. And it's knight tribal, right?
Yeah.
It's a tribal deck full of creatures, and it plays a lot of equipment, right? Because knights like their swords and shields and such, right? So with Arielle, Knight of Windgrace, a lot of your, her power is going wide, right?
Yeah.
Making a lot of knights, and that's good. You can pump up your knights and you can have a whole bunch of knight tokens. They're not just 2/2s anymore. Now they're 6/6s.
Yeah.
And that's great and that's fine. But if somebody plays Constant Mists.
Yeah, which is 1 and a green for an instant with buyback, sacrifice a land. Creatures deal no combat damage this turn.
Right? Or something like Glacial Chasm,
which is a land that says cumulative upkeep 2 life. When Glacial Chasm comes into play, sacrifice a land. You cannot attack. All damage dealt to you is reduced to 0.
Right. And so when those things happen, Arielle just kind of slumps to the floor. Yeah. Sword and shield kind of fall out of her grip. And it's what do I do?
She's just I can't even.
Yeah, I can't even. Not today. I'm going back to bed. Right. So I think a lesson I've learned from that deck is include some backup plans, right? Include some alternate ways to win. And some of the ones that I've thought about, and I haven't revisited that deck because it's not in my stable, but I probably should because there's some really great cards in there, right? You got the Sword of Feast and Famine in there. So much good equipment.
It's a great card.
But some of the cards I thought about adding were Skull Storm,
which is 7 black for a sorcery that says, when you cast this spell, copy it for each time you've cast your commander for the command zone in this game. Each opponent sacrifices a creature. Each opponent who can't loses half their life, rounded up. That card is brutal.
Yeah, this was included in the Amanatu, the Fate Shifter, Fate Shifter.
Something like that.
Precon, and 9 mana seems like a lot, but you know what? that card can win the game, because what you do is you just hold it in your hand, and if it's in your opening hand, maybe you're like, okay, we're going to plan B.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to like cast my commander a bunch, and just if she dies, great. That's just another counter.
Yeah.
Or another copy of the spell. And eventually somebody's going to wrap the board.
Yep.
When they do, it gets back around to your turn. You're like, okay, now we're doing it. And it's going to go 4 times.
Yeah.
And half of, even if they're at 40, now you're at 20, now you're at 10, now you're at 5, now you're at 2.
Yep.
Right. And that's from it's pretty easy to win from that position.
That's pretty good.
It's all of your opponents. So that's a kind of card that, it doesn't take up a whole lot of slots in your deck, and you can add it and have like this backup plan of like, hey, if stuff goes down, I've got something, I've got like my nice warm blanket. A couple of other ones I thought about here was Approach of the Second Suns,
which is 6 and a white for a sorcery. If Approach of the Second Sun was cast from your hand and you've cast another spell named Approach of the Second Sun this game, you win the game. Otherwise, put Approach of the Second Sun into its owner's library, 7th from the top, and you gain 7 life. That card's tight.
And so if you have a way to draw a bunch of cards, right, that gets a whole lot better in a hurry. And it's just something that you can cast and maybe give your life total a little buffer. And if the game just keeps going and they just keep constant misting, or they have Glacial Chasm in play, this is a way to win.
Yeah,
right.
Sure.
Like it gets around the combat step. So, and it's in color. So, and then the last one that I thought about is Torment of Hailfire.
Yep. It's X black for a sorcery. Repeat the following process X times. Each opponent loses 3 life unless that player sacrifices a non-land permanent or discards a card. That card also brutal.
Yeah, that is a game ender.
Yeah,
much like Exsanguinate, that's a card that'll get there. So, so why don't you do the next one, and I'll maybe bring up the cards to read this time.
Okay, that sounds good. So the next example, we're going back to the fan favorite Emry, Lurker of the Loch. A card that shuts down Emry, just hardcore, is Rest in Peace. Rest in Peace is pretty crazy.
Yeah, I found this out personally this week at the Mothership. Shout out to Mothership. EDH night. One of my opponents had Rest in Peace in play, and it's like, oh yeah, so now my deck does nothing.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, the whole deck was built around recurring stuff out of my graveyard, and now I don't have one of those. Yeah. So that was pretty rough.
Yeah, and the way Rest in Peace works, I don't know the cost, but it exiles all graveyards first, and then any card that would go to the graveyard gets exiled, correct?
Yeah, it's a replacement effect. It's instead of. Yeah. So instead of going to the graveyard, it's just exiled. So there's not even like a small sliver of a window where you could activate Emry to like return something. It's just like, nope.
Yep. So when you have things like that, there are other cards you could play to kind of deal with that, like Meteor Golem. It's a 7-cost artifact creature that I believe is a 7/7.
No, it's a 3/3.
It's a 3/3. Okay, yeah. And when it comes into play, destroy target permanent an opponent controls. Is it non-land or is it just permanent?
I think it's just target permanent.
Got there.
Yep. Oh no, it says non-land. It's
non-land. Okay, so that's gonna get you out of that Rest in Peace situation.
Yeah, and I wanted to give a shout out to Matt Jorgensen at Metal Matt Returns for suggesting Meteor Golem to me, saying like, hey, here's a way for Emry to get rid of Rest in Peace, and I was like, that might replace Duplicate, I think, in my deck. So it's been added to the possible cards of my stable. So nice. Matt, we appreciate the suggestion and thank you so much.
Another fan favorite, this is something I'm always trying to do personally, but your Emry deck has one of the slots with self-mill, right?
That's right.
And that's something that happens a lot. So maybe play Labman or Jace Labman.
Yeah, so Laboratory Maniac is 2 and a blue for a 2/2 human wizard. If you would draw a card while your library has no cards in it, you win the game instead, right? So it turns mill into the anti-mill, the win, right? And Jace Wielder of Mysteries is 1 blue for a 4 loyalty legendary Planeswalker Jace, and with the static ability of if you would draw a card while your library has no cards in it, you win the game instead. So Jace has some other abilities, but that's the one we're talking about here.
For sure. Another one, and I think this is a great card. I love playing this card. Rite of Replication.
Rite of Replication is 2 blue for a sorcery that says make a copy of target creature. It also has Kicker for 5, and put a token on the battlefield that's a copy of target creature. If Rite of Replication was kicked, you put 5 of those tokens on the battlefield instead.
And the cool thing about Rad Replication, especially in like this situation with Emery where you're locked down, Emery's not really get in there and attack kind of deck, but this is kind of like an OPC card, sort of. Someone has like, the super dope creature that like maybe has death touch or flying or something ridiculous. Like, I'm going to need 5 of those. Pro tip though, don't target someone's commander.
Yeah, not so great with legendary creatures, although there are exceptions. There are legendary creatures that do some cool stuff, like when they die.
Yeah, that's true.
And they're oftentimes like this card is like unassuming, but oftentimes when I play it, there's a creature in play, and I don't have a good example off the top of my head, but you like maybe Massacre Worm, right? And that's like when it comes into play, it gives all creatures -2/-2, and then each opponent loses 2 life for a creature when it dies this way. And when you make 5 copies of that, they all see each creature die. So each creature that dies like does 10 damage.
Yeah.
So like you're just like, oh, whoops, I just won the game.
Yeah.
Right? Like stuff like that happens all the time in Casual Commander. And Rite of Replication can definitely end games that way.
I mean, I feel like that's really your motto. Oops, I won.
Oops, I won again.
What was didn't you have like was it Oops Jace or what was
I had an Oops All Jace deck.
that was pretty funny. It was more of a flavor deck than a win deck. Another alternate win condition for Emery you could try is Ekko Storm, which is 3 blue for a sorcery that says when you cast a spell, copy it each time you've cast your commander, which Emery, man, you can cast Emery so many times for so cheap.
When I played it last night,
it was like 5 or 6 times.
Yeah, I'd cast it at least 4 or 5 times, and every time it cost a single mana.
Yeah, it was great.
It was always easy to cast. I never got Vandal Blasted. I never got Akroma's Vengeance, right?
Yeah. So this thing copies for each time you've cast the commander from the command zone. You may choose new targets when you cast the spell, copy it each time you've cast your commander from the command zone. You may choose new targets for the copies. Create a token that's a copy of target artifact. That can get real good.
You know what I want to do with it?
Aetherflux Reservoir.
That's exactly the one.
Yeah.
Oh man, does that sound so great?
Yeah, because I mean, you storm it up and you just keep gaining life, and you do it so many times, and then it's like 50 damage here, 50 damage there, 50 damage over yonder. Oh, wait. Oops, I won.
Yeah, exactly.
Oops, I did it again.
Here's a quick shout out to the Commander's Brew guys. They have an episode that was the Grixis Brutaclad episode where they actually talked about turning all of their treasure tokens into Aetherflux reservoirs. And that was a fantastic episode. So I encourage everybody out there to go check it out. It was really good.
Yeah. So, the things that we just listed, those are pretty specific to pretty specific decks. But, what are some other common win conditions? We've talked about one, and that's just attacking with fat creatures, just going wide and turning things sideways. That's a thing that people do. A card that goes well with that is Craterhoof Behemoth. Craterhoof Behemoth is 5 green for a 5/5 creature beast with haste. When Craterhoof Behemoth enters the battlefield, creatures you control gain trample and get +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the number of creatures you control.
The number of games that I've seen won by somebody casting Craterhoof Behemoth is quite substantial. This card wins all the time.
Yeah.
And but it's a pricey card, right? What's it coming in at?
$37.99.
Yeah, that's a lot. There are a couple of other budget options that kind of like perform the same role. So we've got Overrun, for example.
Yeah. And Overrun is 2 green. Creatures you control get +3/+3 and gain trample until end of turn.
So this is especially good in a go wide or token strategy. Although if you're doing that, you probably already have Overrun or Overrun type effects in there. Yeah. And it's not super great if you're not like a go wide strategy. If you've just got like 3 or 4 creatures, not necessarily the greatest. But if your plan is to win via attacking, you could do a lot worse than Overrun. And there's another one that's a little more on the Zack side of life.
This is one of my favorite cards. It's 2 green. It's Triumph of the Hordes. It's a sorcery. Till end of turn, creatures you control get +1/+1 and gain trample and infect. And all I need is that one infected or one poison counter on you, and then I'm just gonna proliferate the heck out of it.
Yeah, so like an Atraxa probably playing this. So yeah, that's a good way to win with some attacking. But there are other ways to get a win. For example, alternate win conditions or alternate loss conditions. Right. We actually talked about Approach of the Second Sun earlier. Yeah. Right. And that's an alternate win condition. There's a new one that I've included in my Emery Lurker of the Lock deck. And it's Mirrodin Besieged.
Mirrodin Besieged is just awesome. I love that card. It's 2 blue for an enchantment. As Mirrodin Besieged enters the battlefield, choose Mirrodin or Phyrexian. If you choose Mirrodin, whenever you cast an artifact spell, create a 1/1 colorless mirror artifact creature token. I think that could be pretty good.
That could also be a win condition, right? That's a way to go wide. If you have a way to pump your tokens, or like a coat of arms, right? Like get that meat coat going.
Oh yeah.
All those Murs are going to be super swole, right?
Yep. And then the second mode, Phyrexian. At the beginning of your end step, draw a card, then discard a card. Then if there are 15 or more artifact cards in your graveyard, target opponent loses the game. If you're rest in peace it out, that's probably not going to help, but it's a pretty good alternate win condition.
So there's a new one on here. Well, it's not a new one. It's an old card, but it's recently been added to MTG Arena in the historic format, and it's called Darksteel Reactor. And this is a 4-mana artifact that's indestructible. And at the beginning of your upkeep, you put a counter on it. And then once it has 20 or more counters, you win the game.
That is correct. That's pretty legit. And honestly, like, I don't know, maybe like in the version of Emery that I originally built, the take all the turns, maybe you use that as a way to get more counters on Darksteel Reactor.
And it is indestructible. It's really hard to get rid of. Although, the True Love's Kiss can exile it. So there are things.
Every kiss starts with a K. K Jewelers.
Every kiss begins with K.
I thought it ends with K. I don't know why. That's not how you spell kiss.
That's kick.
Yeah. Another pretty sweet alternate win condition that Ryan can tell you about. It's super sweet when he plays it and I'm in the game is Revel in Riches. It's 4 and a black for enchantment. Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, create a colorless treasure artifact token with tap, sacrifice this artifact, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 10 or more treasures, you win. So we've told this story before, but I feel like it needs to be told again.
It bears repeating.
Yeah, for sure. Ryan played it, and I was like, and then for some reason I was like, Ryan wants me to wrath the board. There are a bunch of creatures on this board.
I did say like, it'd be a really good time to wrath the board. It was tongue in cheek, but you did do it.
But I did it anyway because I thought you were being serious. And I was like, yeah, there's a bunch of creatures. This looks scary. Yeah, I think I should do that. Thankfully, someone took out Revel in Riches before we got to Ryan's turn, but it's pretty sweet.
Yeah. So another good one here is Mortal Kombat. This is an oldie but a goodie. It's
dun 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 dun.
Test your might.
Mortal Kombat.
This one's spelled with a C, but it's 2 black for an enchantment, and it just says at the beginning of your upkeep, if 20 or more creature cards are in your graveyard, you win the game.
That's a pretty legit card. Like, I actually really like that. And it's $1.50. That's cheap.
Okay, so Zach, this next one definitely is your bread and butter here. If you're not going to win via creature damage and you're not going to win via alternate win conditions, what's another way to take out a game?
This one, it doesn't feel as great for everyone, but it's combos. So this is we're going to list 2 of my favorite combos. The first one's Sharum the Hegemon, which is 3 white, blue, black. Esper, my favorite shard. For a legendary artifact creature Sphinx, that's a 5/5 flying. When Sharum the Hegemon enters the battlefield, you may return target artifact creature from your graveyard to the library. So that's pretty sweet. But then you combine it with another little card called Phyrexian Metalmorph, which I can't find.
It's 3 and a blue Phyrexian mana, and when it comes into play, it can copy a creature or an artifact.
So, I see it. So what happens is you have Sharum the Hegemon, and then you play Metalmorph and have it come in as Sharum, and then
due to the legend rule, you got to sacrifice one of them.
Yep. So one of them goes to the graveyard. Then the other one comes into play, and the Metalmorph comes into play. then it triggers, and then you bring back Shroom from the graveyard.
Yeah, and so you got yourself a nice little loop cooking there.
A little dance of graveyard stuff. And then this is the only card that has this, and I think it's cool. It's got Gravestorm, so it's Bitter Ordeal. It's 2 and a black for a sorcery that says, search target player's library for a card, and remove that card from the game. That player shuffles his or her library. Gravestorm. When you play the spell, copy it for each permanent put into a graveyard. Then this turn, you may choose new targets for the copies. So the deal is, Shroom and Phyrex and Metamorph do their dance indefinitely. So, you got 4 people at the table. We'll say they have 80 cards apiece in their deck. So, you do it infinite times.
Arbitrarily large is arbitrarily large. You can pick any number you need to.
Yeah, exactly enough. And then the other one is the bane of Ryan's existence. If I play one piece of it, he's just like, get him. And I'm like, I don't even have the other piece, man. These cards are good by themselves. And he's like, get him.
Hashtag get combo Zack.
Yeah, this is the KFC 2-piece combo that Ryan's scared of. Exquisite Blood. 4 and a black for an enchantment. When opponent loses life, you gain that much life. Cool. Not that big of a deal. Then there's Sanguine Bond. It is 3 black for an enchantment that says, when you gain life, target opponent loses that much life. So, all it takes is one ping somewhere.
And then it all goes
downhill.
Spiraling down and down and down. Yeah, absolutely.
So, those are things that I like. But yeah, there's lots of cool things.
So another way that you can take out your opponents is milling them out, right? You can just get rid of all the cards in their library, or if you happen to be able to generate an arbitrarily large amount of mana, you can cast something like Stroke of Genius, which is X2 and a blue for an instant, which is target player draws X cards. And like you said, if they have 80 cards in the library, cast for 81.
Yep.
And that's game. So
I've always wanted to win by stroking somebody out. It's just never happened.
It feels good when you do. Okay, so the last kind of area of like wins that we really want to talk about in this episode is big mana, big spells, right? We've got a lot of them here. There's Exsanguinate.
X black for sorcery. Each opponent loses X life. You gain life equal to the life lost this way. I've definitely won that way before.
Yeah, and this card wins games, and it's not overly expensive. And it's the thing
like 5.
Yeah, the thing that's great about it is if you cast it for like 6 or 7, the amount of life you gain gives you time to dig for more ways to win.
For sure.
So it like not only if you can just do it for like a whole bunch with like Cabal Coffers and
Urborg Tomb of Yawgmoth.
Yeah, exactly.
And that Liliana. What's that Liliana?
Dark Realms?
Yeah.
Pretty sure.
Yep.
So you can go crazy with those. We already mentioned Torment of Hailfire this episode.
Yep. There is Expropriate, which is one of Ryan's favorite cards. It would be one of my favorite cards if I could get one. 7 blue sorcery. Council's Dilemma. Starting with you, each player votes for time or money, friend. For each time vote, take an extra turn after this one. For each money vote, choose a permanent owned by that voter and gain control of it. Exile Expropriate.
This card wins games. I definitely have won a game recently with my Golos deck that was from our Vegas Rotisserie. I cast the spell, and all of my opponents were like, time. I
don't understand that.
I was like, what has become of me? I take all your turns. Yeah, like you give me 4 turns, I'm definitely winning that game.
Yeah, for sure.
And I had mana to activate Golos on each of those turns too. And it was just like, okay, I'm going to go for the Maze's End win, which I did, which was awesome. It was like achievement unlocked, like win the game with Maze's End. I'd never done it before.
It's awesome. It feels so good.
I may never do it again, but it was great. So PSA out there, if somebody casts Expropriate, vote for money. Give them your best permanent. Hopefully one person doesn't have Sanguine Bond and the other person has the other one. But yeah, that's something that can happen. Another one of my favorites is Past in Flames.
Past in Flames is cool. I wish I've never played this card. It's 3 and a red for a sorcery. Each instant and sorcery card in your graveyard gains flashback until end of turn. The flashback cost is equal to the mana cost. And then Past in Flames also has flashback for 4 and a red.
Yeah, so this card it often pairs with Mana Geyser, which is 3 red for a sorcery, and it adds mana to your mana pool equal to the number of tapped lands your opponents control, which a lot of games, if you've got 3 opponents and they each have 8 tapped lands, that's 24. And then you cast Pass in Flames, and then you cast that again, and now you're like 48, minus the Pass in Flames mana. And then you're like, oh, I've got all this mana to work with. Very easy to win that way. A common way that a lot of my mono red decks win. So include that here. And another one is kind of a similar vein is Mizzix's Mastery.
I love this card. I've definitely cast this card, and it's always been good. It's 3 and a red for sorcery. Exile target card that's an instant or sorcery from your graveyard. For each card exiled this way, copy it. And you may cast the copy without paying mana cost. Exile Mizzix's Mastery. Overload, 5 red, red, red. You may cast this spell for its overload cost. If you do, change its text by replacing all instances of target with each.
Yeah, so for 8 mana, you're recasting every instant and sorcery in your graveyard.
Yeah.
Pretty easy to win a game that way, especially if you've got like I don't know, anything really. Like maybe, does it say cast? Does Aetherflux Reservoir work there? I think it might.
Oh, man.
But even still, like, or no, it says copy, right?
It says copy.
So maybe you don't win that way, but seriously.
There are ways.
Yeah.
There are ways.
Especially if Mana Geyser is in your graveyard.
Oh, my gosh.
So, Mizzix's Mastery, another really fun way to win. But yeah, so the big mana, big spells is a really fun way to win.
Yeah.
Definitely check it out. So that's going to kind of bring us to the end of the episode. We're going to wrap it up here a little bit. I think the lesson here is that if you go into your deck building and your games with a plan, and you build like a cohesive deck that kind of like has a plan and maybe some backup plans, right? You're going to find the game easier to navigate. You're going to be able to make decisions a little easier because, you've got that plan to kind of guide you on the decision-making train. And, if you've got like some cards in there to protect your stuff, like some counter spells or maybe Teferi's protection, you can do that. And have a plan.
And I think by doing this, it'll keep you from getting flustered when your main plan just doesn't work out, or you just have cards in your hand. You're like, you're never like, I have a card in hand. I don't know what to do. No, you have that plan. So yeah. So you know what the best plan is, Ryan?
Plan to put a Soul Ring in your Emery Lurker of the Lock deck?
That's one of them. Did you put one? I didn't see you play one last night.
I did put it in there, yeah.
I mean, I looked at that deck earlier and I didn't see it.
Is it missing?
I took it. No, I'm just kidding. I saw it in there. He put it in. He did get his word. So, yeah. You know what you should plan on doing? Tuning into Commander Social next week.
Indeed. Special thanks to our super patrons. You can check us out at patreon.com/commandersocial and join at the Your Name in Lights tier if you want to be here as well. Okay, so thanks for watching and making it all the way here. Please remember to hit the like button,
the subscribe button,
and the bell for ringing notifications. We do that every episode, but honestly, it really does help us out.
Absolutely.
So if you are watching, please do that. And you can follow us on Twitter. I'm at Green Geek.
I'm at Z4CK38, and together we're at Commander Social.
So plan on seeing us next week. And until then, this is Ryan.
This is Zach.
Saying, keep it social.